Of us are highly familiar with YouTube and have wondered how exactly do these people create these wonderful how-to videos on different programming that is so helpful to us. Well, it's through screencasting. Screencasting really goes beyond just simple how-to videos, however. For the classroom, this is a great way to give direct instruction to your students as homework. Of course, how-to videos are always good, however, and it should be continued to use as how-to videos, but also student presentations. As we move towards Common Core and inquiry-based learning, we are looking for a more student-centered classroom. Screencasting is highly efficient as far as the use of class time. No longer do you have to give multiple days of lecture to get through a topic. Instead, this can be done as homework. The students get the information, and in the classroom, the teacher goes over this information with lessons that reinforce their learning. Lessons themselves are reusable. One could possibly use it from year to year. Myself, I'm finding that some of the things that I mentioned while I'm giving an online lecture during screencasting, I mentioned things that we did in homework or relevant things that were brought up in the classroom itself. So depending on how you lay out your screencast, it may function for the next year, it may not. Absenteeism is also a huge issue that many of us teachers face. Because of absenteeism, trying to give a student who is absent notes is nearly impossible. The kids don't ask the same questions. It makes it very difficult for a student who is absent to make up any type of direct instruction. Since screencasting is recorded, this allows students to be self-paced. They can rewind, pause, do what's necessary in order to complete the lesson. Now, just because this is somewhat considered homework, it doesn't mean that they can't collaborate with each other. They can be out to each other's houses, they can be looking at the same notes at the same time, and they could formulate questions as they're looking over these screencasts. I typically have my students come to class with at least 3 questions from any screencast that they go over. And this adds for a very nice class discussion. Here goes a list of quite a few different screencasting options. I myself use Screencast-o-matic because it's the first one I used and I liked it. It's very simple. We'll get in more detail as far as Screencast-o-matic is here in a little bit, but there is Screencastify, Jing, QuickTime Player, Screener, Snagit, and I'm sure there's a whole lot more. I know you can also use iMovie, I was told, but I have yet attempted to use that. Alright, pretty straightforward as far as how to set up a screencast. Pick a short lesson. Don't pick anything too long. It just would bore the students. For example, at one point I gave 15 minutes worth of notes, and that 15 minutes worth of notes would typically take 2 class periods worth of lecture in order to get through. Because, of course, you can't just talk the whole way through. You have to slow down, take a break, pause, answer questions. A office worker will come into the class and disrupt it. There's a multitude of different reasons why in-class lecture it gets slowed down. So go easy on yourself and pick a short lesson. It'll make it much more easier if you pick a shorter one. Step 2. Well, it says step 3 there, so I'm going to have to fix that. 2. Pick the app. Like I said, Screencast-o-matic, it works for me. Something else may work for you better. That's, like I said before, that's just what I'm familiar with. Many are familiar with iMovie. Feel free to use that. Step 3. Record. Now, you may want to create a screenplay first. We're teachers. You can probably wing it. I like to do that myself because I will throw in humor. If I try to create a screenplay with humor in it, I would imagine I would find myself speaking somewhat robotic. Next, post it. Now, there's a few different ways to do this. I like to use YouTube. You can use TeacherTube. I'm somewhat familiar with that. I've never posted anything there. And then also Vimeo. Your website, if you have a website, this is also an option. Those of you who use Google Classroom, this is an option as well. Now, with Screencast-o-matic, you have a couple ways of doing things. One, you can download the video and save it to your Google Drive. You can post it directly to YouTube from Screencast-o-matic. I would suggest that you go ahead and save it as a file on Google Drive and then upload it to YouTube if you want to go that direction. That way you have a multitude of different options. You can post it in Google Classroom, you can post it on your website instead of just doing a link to the YouTube page. There's so many ways to do the same thing with technology. Do what's best for you. I myself, like I said, I do like to save it as a file, keep it in my Google Drive. At our school site, we have unlimited storage, so it's a non-issue. My website is done through Google Sites, so it's really easy as far as posting a video on my website, or excuse me, a screencast on my website. Step 5, assign it. So of course your students have to view it. One of the things you want to make sure is that they come back to the class prepared to ask some questions. During any lecture, students should be asking questions. I purposefully leave holes in my lecture just so I can get my students to speak. If they can talk about it, they will remember it that much more. Step 6, have an activity that goes to the heart of whatever the lecture is. So, for example, I teach history. If I'm talking about the Cold War, someone's name comes up. We might look at a speech from that person. We might look at some type of document they wrote. It just depends. Use something to reinforce that screencast. Step 7, evaluate, assess, both yourself and your students. I like asking my students, what did they think of the screencast? Was it a good one? And typically I get some pretty positive feedback. Like any good video, any good screencast, relatively short, to the point, keep it entertaining, try not to sound robotic. That's one of the reasons I don't necessarily like the idea of a screenplay. If you're reading from something, that could be very, very boring. Be humorous, crack some jokes, have some inflections with your voice. It makes it that much more interesting for the students. And of course, visuals. And this slide is awesome for visuals. I just have to throw that out there. I do have to say that I do not work for Screencast-o-matic. Just because I use them doesn't mean I'm getting a kickback or anything. One of the main reasons why I do like it is because it's free. Free is always good, particularly when you're a teacher. Now, in order to make this as easy as possible, you should be signed into your Google account already. As a matter of fact, if you're screencasting, you probably should already be at the level where you're typically using Chrome, you're in your Google Drive all the time. It just makes it so much more easier. So when you sign up, sign up using your Google School Gmail account. It makes it so much easier. Just sign up. You can download the app itself, or you can do it directly from the website, the screencast anyways. So either way, whatever you want to do. Some computers, if you're on a PC, for example, in our district, you're locked out. So I don't know if it'll exactly allow you to download the app. Probably better not try. So just to show you some of the functionality of what you can do. If you notice this entire screencast, you have not seen my face. You've only heard my voice. Besides, why would you want to see this mug anyways? So it's up to you whether or not you want to have your face on the screencast. Completely up to you. This little bar right here will show you the volume that you're speaking at. So if you want to stay monotone, you might want to keep it right there in the middle. You can just show the screen. You can do both. You can do just the webcam. So a lot of YouTube videos, you'll see just a narrator. You won't see any text, anything like that. You'll just see and hear the narrator speaking. It's up to you what you want to do. I usually close this out while I'm screencasting, so all you really see is the background slide. So for example, this is a Google slide that you've been looking at this entire time, not a PowerPoint. You can use a PowerPoint, totally up to you. You can use whatever you want, including visuals. So for example, I could just swipe this in from somewhere off on my screen. So if you notice these lines that are going around the screen right here, this is the only thing that's being recorded. Now, what's really on my screen, this is a small portion. The rest of my screen, I have some of my desktop icons. I've got Photoshop open. This was over off to my left. I can throw it over here off to my right, bring it back, and this is just a JPEG. It could be a video. You know, it's entirely up to you. You have so much freedom with this program. Closing, some of the positives that I'd like to bring up. The rapport with the students. Their students really seem to enjoy this type of instruction. It was funny, one story that I need to mention. One of my students came up to, I asked her specifically, because she, very opinionated student, how she liked this. And surprisingly, she said it was oddly comforting. I was taken aback, particularly from her. More class time. Definitely a positive. So more class time to actually do that type of reinforcement, one-on-one type of work that I really enjoy doing with my students. Differentiated instruction. That's a big push that we are looking to do, is to differentiate instruction for the variety of students that we come across. So those with 504s, IEPs, it gives them the time necessary to catch up, if you will, or to really increase their retention of the classroom knowledge. Outside of the classroom, many times students need that extra push, not just inside the classroom, but outside. Right now we're going through finals. As I'm doing this video anyways, we're going through finals, and I've been getting quite a few reminders from students thanking me for all of the screencasts that I have posted, and also videos that are on my website. If you can screencast, it's a great idea if you start getting into this methodology. Here go some references you might want to check out. A lot of these are just for the images that I posted, but feel free to check them out as you feel the need. Bye.